YouTube, how's it going? It's Multiplier here for another video that can change your life, change your brain, and make everything you do forever much easier. Now, the following advice will initially seem like a bunch of hollow lifestyle guru, self-help sort of nonsense that doesn't really mean anything. But it's actually, which I'll explain, if you understand the key principle behind it, it's the way that all the best people think. And it goes like this. How do you choose what projects to do or what tasks to do? What projects? Now, this is also an idea I kind of stole from Tim Ferriss, but again, it's more of a general principle of the universe. And Tim Ferriss is just one of those people, again, who's popularized the idea. But as I say, it's a general idea of the universe that most amazing people do. The idea is this: when choosing a project, when choosing something to do, what you want to do is choose the project or set up the project in such a way that even if it fails, you still win. See, kind of at first listen sounds a bit hollow and self-helpy and useless, but let me elaborate. Now, what I mean by this is you want to make sure that even if your project fails, at the end of it, you still have something useful, an asset, if you like. Now, that useful thing could be content, could be some tracks or a video or some interviews or some presets, literally any form of content, or it could be a relationship, it could be skills, experience, knowledge. In fact, knowledge is a really important one because your brain is your biggest asset. If you know stuff, then that allows you to do more, better things in the future. Could also be social media likes, monies, social proof. Basically, you want to make sure that even if your project fails, you're in a better position at the end of the project than you were at the beginning, which sounds incredibly simple. But you'd be surprised how many people completely ignore this when they're making really big decisions, not just in the music space, but also just in day-to-day life. So I'll circle back around to the music example in a sec, but let me give you an example in day-to-day life. If you're thinking of taking a job for, say, 2 years, just to sort of, let's kind of relate it to music. You're thinking of taking a job to tide you over until the music thing takes off a bit more. We've all been there. I did it. We've all been there. It's extremely common and most people have to do it. And so you want to choose a job that at the end of that job, you're in a better position than when you were at the beginning. You're not just trading your time for money to sort of get you by. You want to make sure you're developing something. It could be experience, skills, people skills, computer skills, it could be relationships. Maybe it's in a musically related to music part of the world, or money. I mean, money could count. If you want to say, take a job to tide you over that pays you way more than you need to live off, then you could use all that additional money to feed into a music project, whether that's just presets and samples and educational courses, or could be advertising, PR costs, anything at all. You want to make sure you're not just trading your time for money, but that you're gaining something so that even if the project fails or half fails or doesn't succeed to the very max, basically don't just roll the dice and don't just trade your time for money. Let me give you a more specific example in the music industry. Now that could be entering a remix contest. We've all been there. We're looking online and we see, aha, a remix contest, fantastic. If I win this remix contest, I'll get released on this label and everyone will see my track and that'll be amazing and that will get me to a better place. And so let's enter the remix contest. But remember what I said? We want to make sure that even if the project fails, in other words, even if we don't win the remix contest, which almost certainly won't happen, by the way, even if we don't win the remix contest, we're in a better position than we were at the beginning. And as I say, this could be in one of a few different ways. Could be I've developed a few new production techniques along the way because I've been pushing the boundaries of what I know when making the tracks. So that's good. I've improved my knowledge and therefore better at making tracks after the remix contest than I was at the beginning. What would work is to make a track that stands the test of time for that remix contest. That way I can always reference it on my SoundCloud for years and years to come. I can always kind of feed people back to it and go, that's what I do, that's amazing. Yeah, sort of a bit of content and assets, something you can use to get other things in the future if it's an amazing track in it and it's not sort of time dependent. Whereas if you're just sort of going through the motions, kind of putting a track together, maybe trying to hop on a trendy bandwagon that you know won't be around in 6 months' time, then that's not really worth it. You weren't really convinced of the track, you rummaged it together in a weekend because you kind of run out of time doing the remix contest, and maybe you're trying a genre that you not really super hyped about, but you think it's a trendy genre and you think it might give you a better chance in the remix contest. That's definitely a bad idea because that thing you're creating, that sort of trying to be trendy, almost like a filler track, a track you're not really that hyped about, not the sort of track that you'll send off to people in 2 years' time to show them how amazing your sound is and how good you are at what you do, that is definitely not the right thing to do. Because in that situation, and believe me, we've all been there, even deadmau5 has been there. If you go back through his previous interviews and stuff and some of the remixes he did, he admitted it. That would be an example of what not to do. Because in that situation, even though you maybe only spent the weekend on it, or 4 or 5, 6 hours if you really rushed it, all you're doing is rolling the dice. From now on, you want to make sure that even if the project fails, even if the thing you're trying to do fails, you're in a better position at the end than you were at the beginning. And simply rolling the dice, hoping you win a remix contest for the track you're not that hyped about, and maybe with a really trendy genre that won't be around in 4, 5, 6 months' time, that you think maybe will give you a better chance of winning. That is simply rolling the dice. And remember, as I say, chances are you won't win a remix contest, as at least half of them are not rigged, but you know what I mean. Let me give you another example, a really, really important one. Making an EP or making an album. I talk to a lot of people, and that's one of the things that lots of people want to do. They want to make an EP, they want to make an album. So what you have to do is you have to think about what you're trying to achieve by writing an EP or writing an album, and where are you in the production process, and you want to basically run it through this thing I've just talked to you about. Now, you may be thinking, of course, multiplier. Of course, if I have an album, that's going to give me a better chance. It's going to put me in a better position than I was before. But to be honest, if you're 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the production process, that's just definitely not necessarily true. When you're in the first few years of production, every single track you do, every single album, EP, every single remix you do, that significantly improves your ability. That improves your ability to write cool tracks. You end up learning new techniques, and it just sort of builds on your experiences, and you're in that fast, you're in that fast learning process, that fast learning curve in the first few years. So in those first few years, just making tracks and tracks and tracks and tracks is pretty much always going to be a good thing, because you're going to be better at production at the end of writing a track or an EP than you were at the beginning. But once you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years into it and upwards, then there's a good chance that if you're just banging out an EP or whatever, sort of making a tune because, yeah, I feel like I should make a tune, there's a good chance you're not really learning anything new or even developing any new real experiences. You're going through the same process in Massive, the same process in Serum to make the same sorts of bass sounds, got the same workflows in your mixing arrangement, or DAW, same sort of mixing workflows. You're going through the same sort of motions, and there's just a good chance that you're not really developing much by making a new EP. And if you don't have much of a strategy around that EP, as I say, there's a good chance that you're not actually going to be in a better position than when you started. Another example, right, so let's say you're 2 to 3 years into production, which is quite a common thing. So, or at least for people 2 to 3 years into production. So maybe you're pretty good at making tracks, you can sort of make different tracks, and you're pretty proficient at making a track, you're making sounds, stuff like that. Now, here's a cool idea. What if instead of just working on another EP or another track, like you've been doing for 2 years now, or a year and a half now, maybe you spent the first bit learning, instead of just making another track, instead, why not make a sample pack? But multiplier, I don't actually want to make a sample pack. I actually want to release music and do DJing and stuff. Let me explain now. If you make a sample pack, remember, a sample pack that you like, now this isn't making necessarily a sample pack for somebody else, but you're just making sample packs for yourself. This is good, because if you make loads of sample packs for yourself, not only can you then very quickly arrange that into a track or an EP or an album at a later date, because you've made all the sounds already, it's very quick to then take all those sounds you've already made and very quickly just sort of piece them together into a track. So you're actually working towards the album kind of, but also you have something, you have an asset, you have some content that if you wanted to, you could actually sell on or even give away as part of a promotional thing for you as an artist. So sort of 2 birds, 1 stone. Because remember what I said? Even if you fail, you still succeed. So if you make a sample pack, even if you don't sell that sample pack, or even if you don't use that sample pack for one of your tracks or EPs, there's still other things you can do with it, because it's a multi-purpose, mega-functional super package of fun. Another example could be a record label. So maybe you want to start a record label. Start a record label because you want to. Absolutely fine. Now, we want to make sure we're in a better position afterwards, even if it fails, than we were at the beginning. So if you're creating a record label and all you're doing is releasing your own tracks and maybe just releasing your friends' tracks, that's pretty much it. Then if that fails, maybe you've got a little bit of social proof, but not necessarily much. You haven't really got much. You're not really in a better position afterwards than you were at the beginning. But if you configured your record label, if you set it up in such a way that you were making new connections and collaborating with other artists and sort of expanding your horizons a bit and making new relationships with people, then that would be good. That means that even if the record label failed, you'd have at least 5 or 6 new people that you could collaborate with or work on a new project. So sometimes it's not necessarily just about choosing projects, it's actually about configuring them and making sure you do them in such a way that you're creating a long-term asset for yourself. Think about it. As I say, this not only applies to music, but life in general. It's just a way of thinking about things. That's also the way of thinking about things that super successful, super rich business owners just do it intuitively, instinctively. It's not about just rolling the dice and hoping for the best or trading your time for money or trading your time for a roll of the dice. It's about doing things that create assets, content, experience, relationships, knowledge, etc. Fantastic, fantastic. That is the idea. My name has been Multiplier, and I will catch you guys on the flip.